Hello, my name is Dana Fraedrich, and I am a steampunk and fantasy author, and I am going to be reading an excerpt from my short story, Imagination Unbound, which can be found in the anthology An Assembly of Monsters. Enjoy! Night turned the city of Springhaven into an entirely different place, Robert observed. He'd been to the agate district only a few times before, and though the area had fallen far from the shining arts and culture district it had been over a century ago, decimation by magical war will do that to a place, he found it was no different, at least in this case, from most of the rest of the city. People, in his experience, were like bees. During the day, they buzzed about, swarming and filling all the available space. At night, they huddled in whatever hive they happened to favor at the moment, whether it was a decadent gala in the glittering ivory quarter, the dinner-time rush on a retired steamship-termed restaurant in Cobalt, a chocolate house in Limestone, or an ordinary pub here in Agate, people sheltered when the darkness took over. That created a bit of an odd scenario for him now, given that, in his short tenure as a municipal surveyor, he'd never done a job at night. Of course, some assignments had gone long and stretched into evening, but it was proper nighttime at the moment, just past 11, and they hadn't even reached their destination yet. Robert was used to the hum of people as he set out on an assignment, the clatter of horses and cabs on the cobbled streets. He heard muffled sounds of spirit, and spirit-fueled, joviality from a nearby tavern. But that was the loudest noise around. It faded away as they headed deeper in, toward the Char District. It had once been part of Agate, but now extinct magic had scourged the area during the War of Light. Nothing grew there, so people said, and the walls, which had once bloomed with Agate's namesake shades of lilac and plum, had been irreversibly blackened. Robert found it all extremely silly. Clearly there just wasn't anywhere good for plants to grow, and people must not have found the right cleaning agent for such unique damage. Even so, he had to admit this assignment was strange. Robert was beginning to see why the other gents at the office, all of whom were older and more established than him, had been so generous as to allow him to take it. But that, he mused, made for an opportunity to prove himself. The group with whom he walked down the echoing, abandoned streets made for a motley bunch. He stuck near the builders. He already knew one or two of them in a distantly professional way, and, as they were headed into an area that had been abandoned to time and the elements, the builders were the ones who'd be able to spot and, more importantly, avoid which bits of crumbling stone were in immediate peril of falling onto a person. The accountants weren't much of a surprise either. Accountants would at least attempt to keep keen developers within some semblance of a budget. The savviest businessmen seemed to always have one or two about. The developer in question had come along as well, Mr. Anthony Crackenthorpe. He led the charge, heavy mustaches at the front lines, and Robert knew he was only minutes from an enthusiastic explanation of all the magnificent things Mr. Crackenthorpe had planned for the dilapidated area. Never mind that the builders, accountants, and Robert himself, as the team surveyor, had yet to inspect the area and assess its state and the costs for these grand plans, and that they all had copies of the building applications which already outlined said plans. What was odd, however, were the handful of burly men he'd brought along, who looked like they made a living being large and intimidating. Of course, people said the Char District was haunted. Codswallop. But what had Mr. Crackenthorpe been thinking in bringing these chaps? Were they meant to beat any preternatural forces to undeath? And that is my selection. So thank you for being here. I hope you will support the anthology, An Assembly of Monsters. And if you'd like to find out more about me and my books, you can find me at wordsbydana.com. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye.